I'd like to thank all of you all for joining us this afternoon. We're just about to get started. I see Jackie is now checking on with having her be a part of this. I'd like to say good evening to each of you all. Hi, Jackie. I was just telling the audience I'll be happy when you come on. I can't get started till you get here. So,
I am right here. Thank
but
you. Good
hey,
evening.
we're both happy to have you all join us. Hey, you have an orange background this afternoon. What's going on with that?
I do. Just trying a new setting.
Okay, all right, all right. My name is Dr. Willie Miles. I am the president of Dr. Willie Miles Children Foundation, located here in Atlanta, Georgia. And Jack, why don't you introduce yourself?
Uh, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Hampton Clemens, educator located in sunny South Florida.
Hey, folks, we're so excited about this evening. Now, this is X Books. I hope I'm saying that right. Hey, thanks for saying hi to me. But it's great to be here this evening. A lot of great things are happening, folks. We're glad that y'all are on with us. And Jackie and I are just so excited about what we have planned for the upcoming weeks. And we'll make some of those announcements tonight. But in Atlanta, folks, it's like 85 degrees today. I mean, you're talking about almost, as Southerners say, shirt tail weather. So really happy about that. Now, Jack, I know you guys get that weather all the time, so you don't have anything to celebrate.
We
All right.
do all the time. It's a wonderful thing, I must say.
Exactly, exactly. So we're very excited here in Atlanta with the kind of weather. But folks, I have some things that I want to talk about briefly tonight. And some of them, everything we talk about is serious. But I want to share that the foundation very rarely asks anyone for anything. So in the month of May, you don't have to wait to do this. We're having our annual fundraiser drive. It's not just Jackie has some things she'll share with you, but we're actually going to be campaigning for you all to donate to us. Again, we ain't begging, we're just asking folk. And if we've been pretty good to you, just drop us $1 or two, or $5,000 or two, or 10, whatever your pocketbook can afford. Just go into our website and make a donation to us. We are a 501c3 tax-exempt organization, and we pride ourselves on the work we do, and we've done since 2020. So this year we celebrated being a year old. We're just very excited about it. But again, Jack and I are not that young now. We've been around for many years. So we launched this initiative about a year ago, but we've always been working on behalf of children for the last 20 and something odd years. So that's not new to us. Just for informational purposes, I do want to share y'all something that was very, very interesting. The CDC has declared racism as a serious public health threat. Now, that's really something when CDC has to declare that. People, let's keep our eyes open. And, we're always talking about loving each other, but, we need everybody to say if they love each other, if they can do that, and at least respect each other. Also, I must bring up, the killings of unarmed Black men. Another happened today. I mean, it happened on Sunday, I think. And I'm watching the news. And my question is always, how is all of this affecting children? And particularly Black children, and particularly Black male children? And what kind of mental health issues come out of that?
Right.
Right.
And and it really is important, Dr. Miles. I think obviously the timing is relevant. I mean, it's what the entire country is talking about, but having parents pay close attention to their children with all of this going on is very important.
It's just really frightening to me, and it's overwhelming. And you ask yourself, what can you do? And my one thought I have is simply talk to your children about things when they come in contact with police officers, not what to do and what not to do. And I guess in some situations, you don't have to do anything. They just get killed anyway. So, there was an unknown author who said, the first sign of a civilized society is one that cares for its children. So we're beginning to see that our society may not be too civilized, folk. Let's make it civilized. Let's show love for our children. I mean, for all children, for all children.
Right, and Dr. Miles, also with that, we want to, encourage parents to initiate conversations.
Yes.
Okay, with their children.
Jack, what you said was that's very important, especially in these days and times. Don't wait till the child brings it up to you, because the children are seeing the news. The children are hearing people talk about things, and they're trying to figure out what is really going on out there. And only the parent really should be the one who sets the right perspective on what's happening in this world when it comes to children across the board, but particularly children of color and indigenous children. So, folk, we can't keep our head in the sand anymore and say, oh, well, it doesn't involve us. Let's just talk about mental health. Let's just talk about education, because the killing of anyone becomes an issue for all of us. It should become an issue for all of us.
And
right?
one of the other things, Dr. Miles, that you've often warned us about too, is thinking that a child may be too young to initiate a conversation or too young to be aware. And so, and I know we have some other things, but maybe you want to say a little bit something about, what age that we should really, be sitting children down and saying, what are your thoughts, and at least offering our own perspective.
Well, it's really about the age that the parent feels the child can developmentally process that information. Some 3-year-olds are very, they can process some stuff, and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. So the key is whatever you present it to them developmentally. But I think one thing you said, Jackie, is critically important, that we must initiate the conversation and we must frame the conversation. For instance, if I had small children, these recent killings and so forth, I show it to them and I'd frame them for it. Because if I frame it for them, they then understand it could have been them. Are you with me?
Yes.
So it's critically important, parents, that we just, let's not stop ignoring this stuff. And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but I'm saying CDC declared racism as a national serious public health threat. All right. We'll talk more about that later on. But I can tell you, we're not going to ignore it, people, because it's all part of mental health.
Right.
And if you want to ignore it, maybe this ain't the right channel for you to be on. We hope you stay with us, but we're going to discuss this because it's involving our children.
Absolutely.
Okay, Jackie, do you have your the announcement in front of you about the summit?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I can pull that up.
So if you don't have it, I'll get started. We're just very excited, folk. We have a summit plan for you. It's called Making Children Our Priority 2021 Virtual Summit. It's going to be on May 1st, 2020 from 10 to 12 p.m. And folks, guess what? We decided there's no charge. We're not going to charge you anything for it. But we want you to tell everybody about it. It is a virtual summit, folks. And our whole goal is to bring together parents and practitioners and mental health providers and teachers from across the country to join in on this free summit. Jackie, are you able to see anything now? You have anything out yet?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And was following along with that. Very important, again, as we invite people to join us, the goal about enlightening, and I want our listeners to understand too, we're talking about a global community, which is another thing we have to start to do within our communities in America, within Black communities in America, is realize these are global conversations. We know that we have people in other countries who are listening and tuning into these conversations, but that summit is going to help us do that a little bit more. So we're talking about to a global community about the needs of children, and therefore, and how we can make the world a better place for everyone. Okay. So when we're making it safe for children, it impacts us all.
Jackie, we have a speaker all the way from Portland, Oregon. Why don't you talk a little about her first?
Let's see. So our first speaker from Portland, Oregon, all right, is Dr. Denise St. Patrick Bell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She is CEO and president of GICON LLC. I do know that Dr. St. Patrick Bell has been a practicing psychologist for quite some time, actually more than 30 years. I know that she has practiced in multiple settings, from college settings to private practice. So she is very experienced in the topic that she's going to be talking about, and she's going to be talking to you about your past traumas, unhealed, and how they show up in your children. Revealed.
So, very important topic. You don't want to miss that, and it will help you. I'm telling you.
It actually connects to what's going on now, because there are a lot of people out there with experiences, Dr. Miles, that are related to these, and that's what we're starting to hear more and more. And so, again, past traumas, unhealed, will show up in your children. Revealed.
Revealed. Also, yours truly will be presenting. I'll be presenting a session dealing with My Eyes Are Going Bad. Parenting biracial
children.
Yeah. Is it a matter of Black or white?
Not only, Dr. Miles, it's a good topic, but I think that's another thing that we kind of overlook And we feel like because, let's say, society has accepted it in general, and have they really, that these are children and that the issue of being biracial is not something that needs to be addressed. I can tell you from knowing several, or knowing many youth with a biracial background, that they often identify as not fitting in anywhere.
Exactly. And Jackie, they have great difficulties in the adjustment process, and many feel they shouldn't have to adjust, and many feel like they don't know what's going on with black or white, and their classmates don't know anything about black or white, and guess what? They're bullied. So come to my session. Jack and I, we are competing. There are 4 concurrent sessions going at one time, so we're trying to pull as many people as we can to our session. So forget about Jackie. Come to my session, all right?
But Dr. Miles, I also want to point out, we often look at biracial as being black or white. Biracial
Yes.
children who are Hispanic and black consider
Of
themselves
course.
biracial, and then you've got Blasian and all sorts of combinations. So it is definitely an inclusive conversation. And if you have children who are biracial, children who have friends who are biracial, then that's a conversation you want to be a part of.
Okay. And are you going to introduce yourself as yours
truly? I'm
truly?
going to introduce myself. And so I'm also going to be presenting on a topic about our children's education and why we so often feel that it is someone else's responsibility. So why do we trust others so holistically? A lot to discuss with that, especially when many parents are quote unquote home educating. So that's going to be a very full topic, and parents are going to walk away, or our attendees are going to walk away really understanding the role that school plays in the child's education, and therefore the role they need to play in their child's education.
Folk all the way from Weston, Florida. That's Jackie, y'all. And we're also going to have a very good friend of mine. His name is Wayne Noggle. Wayne has started several organizations here in Atlanta to be as a child placement agency. And what he does, he actually places children in homes, and he licenses those homes. So Wayne is going to talk about the issue of kids in foster care and adoption. He's very well known around the Atlanta area and really throughout the state of Georgia. He has offices in 4 parts of Georgia, and great fan. He's stationed out of Logan'sville, Florida. So folks, listen, this workshop would cost you about $250, and I'm not joking. We're giving it to you free. Now, so it's a Saturday morning, so please don't have us looking stupid with no one in our sessions. To a free conference. We're not undervaluing ourselves. We are valuing you.
That's a very good way to put that, Dr. Miles.
Yeah. So please share with everyone to attend that summit, folks. It's only 2 hours. Starts at 10. We're out by 12, and you don't have to leave your house. All I'm going to request you do is when you come on, please have your camera on. So look as nice as you can look. It is a professional conference. Don't come with rollers and buttons on your head. I don't got to say that. But please, just join us.
Also come prepared to participate. Come prepared with questions. Come prepared with examples. This is about us growing as a community. This is about us serving youth as a community. And again, you guys know us. We're Broken Records. This is important. This is a priority.
Michaela spoke to me. So hi, Michaela. How are you? Thanks for giving me a shout out. I'm really excited about tonight, Jackie. So we got the conference out of the way. Jackie, tell me about your proposed fundraiser.
Okay, so everyone is going to know about this fundraiser. I will tell you, I was not initially a fan of it, but I am a member of a couple of organizations that have used it. I have used the products and just had some phenomenal success. And I thought, why would we not use this to support the efforts of the Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation and making children a priority? So the fundraiser is the Popcorn Fundraiser. And if any of you have participated, and I will be surprised if all of you have not already participated in one, because many nonprofits have been using it to raise funds very successfully. So we will be doing the Popcorn Fundraiser. So if you got popcorn you liked, it will be time to order more. Go ahead and put in the chat, guys, if you have participated in the Double Good Popcorn Fundraiser. I'm sure many of you have. So we can do that on behalf of the Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation. I was about to mention your other organization, Dr. Miles, who's coming out. We're going to start the end of May. Of course, they're scheduling much further out. It's only 4 days. It's quick and easy. It's done on your phone. You order your popcorn, it comes. I recommend the regular, just the butter one. I ordered that. We couldn't keep it in the house. So we're looking forward to getting more. But it is the Double Good Popcorn Fundraiser. Please be on the lookout. We'll be sending out the links. We'll be looking for those of you to share the links. Okay, so we'll be looking to see which one of our guests sells the most.
Guess what? I can hear our guests, our followers already saying, now, we didn't come on for all these commercials. Get on with this tantrum thing. So at this point, we're going to start talking about our topic for tonight. And it's very, very interesting. If I had more time, this topic is really geared toward adults who have tantrums and how it impacts children. So you all got the flyer with the child falling on the ground. I needed a flyer with the adults falling on the ground. That's what I should have had.
Yeah,
right?
And this is a bit of a switch from what we normally do. So this should be informative and refreshing.
Yeah, the question I have is that, did many of were y'all aware that adults have tantrums, first of all? Jack, were you aware that adults have tantrums?
You know, oh yes, but I don't think we call them.
You didn't call them tantrums. I didn't say anger. Did you call them tantrums?
Oh no.
All right, so
we're adults. We don't have tantrums. We just have fits, and we go off, and we scream, and we yell. So yeah. So let's start with that, Dr. Miles. Okay. You led us right into adult temper tantrums. What is this? What is an adult temper tantrum?
Folk, I mean, this is just, and for many of you all, you're experiencing it every day. It really is an adult who has lost their cool, and they scream, kick, curse, and unfortunately, folk, this behavior in adults can last for years, and has lasted for years. If he or she is an adult carrying on this way, that means they've carried on this way before. And usually, the people who are who have adult tantrums, usually have had the earlier diagnosis, Jackie. They've had the anxiety, they've had the depression, they've had the ADHD, they've had all the mood disorders. So we're finding that adults, and there are many adults, Jackie, who have these tantrums. And the wild thing about it is that as a partner or as a friend or as a family member, we say, oh, they just get angry real quick. But it's much more serious than that.
Right. And I'm looking forward to getting to that part because, you know, one of the questions that comes up, what's the difference between an adult tantrum and an adult just being upset about something and yelling about it?
You want me to answer that?
Please.
There is no difference.
Right.
It is a tantrum, folks. When adults start ranting and raving and screaming and calling you names, people, guess what? That's a tantrum. And the sad part about it is that many adults feed into it. Mm-hmm. You know, the girlfriend or the boyfriend.
Justified in it.
Well, we'll argue with them. I'm saying you can't. First of all, if a child is having a tantrum, you wouldn't argue. So all the rules for tantrums is let them have their tantrum. Do not engage. Because when you engage, you're going to make it worse. The difference in children is that children have tantrums developmentally. You know, it's a developmental benchmark. With adults, well, guess what? It ain't developmental. It is anger, it is outrage, and it has different names. Mm-hmm. Some people, Jackie, may call it bipolar, but they go from 0 to 100 in a second. They're happy 1 minute, extremely angry the next minute, and you can't calm them down.
Right.
I want to ask this question of our audience. Do you all know anybody who behaves that way? Who just, they get angry, you cannot calm them down, and they just go off. If you do, put yes in your comment box. Okay, Jackie?
Okay. So, as we talk about that, you've talked a little bit about what it looks like when an adult kind of has an uncontrolled outburst or emotional outburst. Did you want to expand on that at all?
Yes, I do. Jackie, I want to say that if no one knows anybody who has those, then it's you. All right? If you don't know anyone who goes through that, it is you. And oftentimes we misunderstand that tantrum as, oh, guess what? They just get angry. Oh, they'll calm down in a few minutes. What adult does not know how to calm themselves down? Mm-hmm. And so that's the first hint that if an adult cannot calm themselves down, it's a bigger issue. It's a bigger issue. And you're going to find, Jackie, that in many abusive situations when it comes to wives and so forth, sometimes the woman is the aggressor. You're going to find that there's hitting that's involved. And what happens, that we normalize it because the person says afterwards, I'm sorry, that wasn't me.
Mm-hmm. What about temper tantrums with their children?
Oh, most certainly. What what's amazing about this, Jackie, is that when adults have tantrums, and let's think about this tantrum thing. When a person has a tantrum, they're not conscious of what they're doing. So whomever's in the room gonna get it. Whomever. And can you imagine how fearful this could appear for a child?
Yes.
To see their father or their mother outraged. And then we ask ourselves, Jackie, where does the anxiety come from? And where's this child's always scared come from? It comes from actually them seeing and witnessing those kind of behaviors. And and I thank you all for putting the yes in. It's kind of amazing that we see this happen quite often.
Right.
But Jack, guess what we do? We ignore it. We normalize it, and we make excuses for it.
Right. We justify the anger. I can speak from personal experiences. We justify the anger. Because we're adults, we go, oh, okay, they calm down, and then you just move on, right? Not realizing that you kind of left something in your wake.
Well, it's not just in your way, folk. It can be, it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous. And for you to argue with a person who is having a tantrum, for you to say, you're not listening to me, it's just the wrong thing to say.
What? They're not.
They're not listening to you. And you're talking to them and trying to calm them down. It's going to exacerbate the situation. It's going to make it worse. So what we recommend when the adult is having the tantrum is to say nothing at all and make sure you're safe. That's the key. Make sure you're safe.
You led me right into my next question. How should they be dealing with it?
Well, the funny thing about it, it's all according to who the individual is. I mean, none of us are perfect.
Right.
But you need to know who you're getting with before you get in with them.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, because check it. The tantrum is not anything pretty. It comes on its rage, and you can't stop it.
Right. Right.
So the person has this rage for 15 minutes. If they're driving, they have the rage.
Right.
That's where the road rage comes from.
Right.
And so what you have is
and that rage is an indication that there's something deep inside there. There's something else behind the rage.
It is something deep inside, Jackie, but it could be also looking at the person's past diagnosis. And that first of all, if they have a diagnosis, did they ever get treated for it, first of all? And if they got treated for it, when was the last time they were treated for it? And I think we mentioned this before. With all the children diagnoses, they can be adult diagnoses also. Adult depression, adult ADHD, all those diagnoses adults can experience. Yes. But Jackie, I wanted to address the temper tantrums, as I would call them, because they go unnoticed. Not seeing it, we discard them.
Unnamed, not addressed, even when families are going into therapy and trying to figure out, what some of the underlying issues are. Yeah. Right. Matter of fact, I don't think I've heard the term adult temper tantrum before tonight.
Yeah. Well, because they don't use it. But the reason we use it is to equate it to children who have tantrums. It's the same mechanism. It's the same behaviors. Some say, well, do the adults fall on the floor, start kicking and screaming? Some do. Some do. And some hit walls, and some hit you.
Right.
So this tantrum becomes an explosive, intermittent behavior. That means it comes on. Right. And guess what, Jackie? It can happen this morning. Frequency. It can happen at lunchtime. Happen in the evening. Yeah. And it's triggered by, let's talk about the triggers. There's several triggers, and it's according to individuals. You could ask somebody to do something. Triggers a tantrum. It might be adult. You can ask them a simple thing. Do you mind going to the store with me? And the tantrum goes off the scale. And what you should do, don't say anything. Make sure you're safe, first of all. Let the person
let them write it out.
Exactly. You gotta let them write it out. Because it's almost like a tornado, isn't it? Once it starts swirling,
it's a release.
Ain't no sense in jumping in it.
A release. Yes.
There's no sense in jumping in it. You need to jump to the side and take cover. Right. And allow the person to experience their episode. Right.
Very good advice, which leads us to the history, right? What's behind it? And any history, family history.
Well, the history is going to be that usually the person who is an adult who has temper tantrums was also a child who had temper tantrums,
Mm-hmm.
and or a person who previously had a diagnosis. Okay,
Okay.
and the diagnoses are usually they usually are, you know, there's some very common ones. It's always going to be the depression. It's always going to be the depression, which are all the mood disorders,
Right.
So that's going to be there. But what's more important is the history. But what's even more important is knowing what the triggers are and trying to avoid the triggers. So if you have someone in your family who has temper tantrums or who angers quickly,
Mm-hmm.
you have to figure out first what are the person's triggers, and then you try to avoid the triggers. Try to avoid the triggers. It's the same thing for children.
Right.
Now, so with some people, and let's not assume that these are all men.
No.
It's women
Right.
also.
Right. Well, I mean, think about it, Miles. A lot of them, Dr. Miles, would be women. I mean, because you know, stress can be a trigger, and family relationships and things like that. So they're
You know
certainly
something?
not all men.
Yes, I mean, I didn't look at the data on this and doing the gender comparative, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that women may not have it as often because men hold their emotions.
Right. Okay.
Now, what's amazing about this, the holding of emotions has nothing to do with the temper tantrum.
Right.
Because he or she don't have to think about anything. It could be one thing. Go in the refrigerator. Where's the milk? And guess what?
Gone. Gone.
Where's the milk? And if you say anything to that person, guess what? It gets worse.
Yes.
It could be, I came home, the door was locked. Why was the door locked?
Like putting fuel on a fire.
Right. Now, as a person who's receiving this, you have to decide how much can you tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
And the key to the conversation, don't just ignore it. Now, as I tell children, don't ever talk back to the parents when they're giving instruction, because something may happen to you. Just wait till things cool down first and go back like 2 days after the event and say, you know, on Monday when you would say something. So
yes.
with the adult who's having the tantrum, you cannot let them think they're getting away with anything. But please, for your own safety, do not try to address the person's anger during their anger episode.
It's
Wait till it
important to
calms
understand
down.
that it really is a moment of being out of control.
It really is. It really is. So the key
within
is
the school system, when
Mhm.
that happens, we literally clear the space.
Right.
We remove the other children, we try to move the desk, and we let it play out. So
Because the person's out of control.
they're out of control.
Now, and usually what's amazing about this with adults and with children is that when the adult has it, they usually will forget about it and approach you as if nothing has happened.
It's very true.
And that's when you have to say, I'm not sure you're aware, but you had an episode yesterday and you almost tore the house
a lot
up.
of things. Yeah.
Not only that, but the children were afraid. The kids were locked in their room, and so was I. So when it comes to how you deal with it, each person has to decide how much they can tolerate.
Right. And you've got to also mention help. I mean, you and I'm sure we're going to get to that. You recognize it for what it is, and then understand that treatment is necessary. This ain't just see it, avoid it when it happens, and keep moving. It's a condition that needs treatment.
Yeah, and usually they're going to recommend the same medications they do for all of the mood disorders. Can it be controlled? Can a person control it? The answer is yes, they can. But usually they also have a behavior of impulsivity. You know, they do things very quickly without thought.
Right.
And so therefore,
part of controlling it, of course, is first acknowledging it.
Yeah, exactly. And many won't acknowledge it. Right. They'll say, I just got mad. That's all. You know, I love you. I just got mad.
Got mad for a reason. Was triggered, whatever, feel justified in. Like I said, can speak from some personal experiences, but never heard the term adult temper tantrums.
Yeah, that's what it is.
You talked a little bit about causes. You talked a little bit about, how they may be misdiagnosed or maybe had been previously diagnosed. Do you want to expand on possible causes?
Well, I'm going back to the cause again. And the cause is going to be always that the person has experienced some sort of mood disorder prior to it. All you got to do, people, guess what? look at any person who has what you consider other behaviors. They've been diagnosed, or they should have been diagnosed.
Right.
I'm talking about, those extraordinary behaviors, like the anger, the hitting the walls, slamming doors, throwing things. I talked to you all before about children developmentally. Well, the age of a child who does that is going to be like 2, 3, and maybe 4. So when an adult does that,
they're going back
emotionally, he's like 2, 3, or 4. So the key to this whole conversation is, where did it come from? Well, we don't know where it came from, but we can tell you some of the symptoms, what to look out for, some of the red flags, and also what you can do. But I also want to make sure this was applicable to children. How do these behaviors affect children? Okay. And all you have to do is put yourself in the child's place. If you saw someone that you love and who you held responsible for your safety, and you saw them out of control, throwing things, I mean, how would you feel? I mean, I'd be scared. I'd run and hide.
You'd be shaken, obviously.
Yeah. And Jackie, what happens? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but when kids witness this kind of stuff and it's life-changing, what is that called? You recall that?
Trauma. It's called trauma.
It's called
a traumatic experience.
Exactly.
And I think parents don't realize that it can be internalized. It's not just something that happens on the surface and goes away. You don't often realize how much your child may be replaying that experience, may be replaying the things that were said and internalizing them. So yeah, it's trauma.
But if you want to trace back these tantrums, talk to the person's family members. How was Johnny when he was little? Oh, he had a bad temper tantrum. Okay, all right. And I don't mean to go here with people, but we don't interview people enough before we marry them.
Amen.
Right. We don't ask about these count. You want to ask, all you want to know is, are they rich or poor? Well, it's more than that. It is.
Or even pay attention to behaviors sometimes.
Exactly.
Sometimes there are indicators,
But you know what's amazing though? During the dating process, anyone can pretend for years.
Right.
But there are always there's always telltale signs.
Right.
There are always telltale signs. But the problem with that, Jackie, what we do, we marginalize it. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets angry. He just lost his cool.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But there are the other thing is that there is something that we can look out for and begin to sort of like target. Anytime a person is not resilient, that means the ability to bounce back. They can process stuff. Mm-hmm. You better look at them, because if they're excitable, if they can't handle problems, they can't handle situations without exploding.
It's an issue.
That is an issue for a whole lot of people.
Needs help. And there's some other notes here, Dr. Miles, about when a person cannot cope with negative emotions.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. Or is unable to, well, we said calm themselves down, but let's elaborate on that. Can't cope with a negative emotion, because I think that is what triggers a lot of the tantrums.
You know what's amazing? I'm actually treating a person for something. They're a married couple, and in this situation, the husband blames the wife for everything. I mean, for everything.
So for every for his temper tantrums, or just
for everything, even for him being born. She is the problem. Well, people who do that are manipulative. Are you ready? Adults who have tantrums are also manipulative.
I think one of the things that's interesting about that, especially when they're that extreme, you wonder, why are they still together?
I'll tell you why they're together. Usually it's the woman who feels that she has no other place to go. Oh, wow. And also part of this is tantrums, but it's also about control. The other thing is to have her feel as bad about herself as she can.
Wow.
Because he then has control. He then, I'm using the word here, it could be he or she, also blames the person for their insecurities. for their insecurities. I'm insecure because of you. Are you with me?
Yes.
So what
those
happens?
Are some signs. And you know what, Dr. Miles, those signs are also applicable to dating, because you do sometimes hear a person say that, and we've talked, I've talked in other circles to young girls about thinking that that's love.
Mm-hmm.
I love you so much that the idea of you being with someone else, that's an insecurity, right? That's their own insecurity, and that's never a good thing.
You're going to find that the person who has the tantrums will sometimes use those tantrums as a way to intimidate, control, and the biggest thing what they want to do, Jackie, they want you to feel like they want you to feel bad about you not doing what they want you to do.
Right. They want you to acquiesce to justification of their tantrum.
No, and anything else. Right. They're cutting out, they're whatever they do.
Right.
And so what happens?
Support it.
And so what happens when they get into a situation where they're discussing, guess what happens? Every discussion becomes what? A tantrum.
Right.
And which means that if you're not trying to discuss something and every discussion is a tantrum, that means we never address the issue.
Right. Never address the issue causing it or the issue of the tantrum.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So the person, either man or woman, leaves the conversation feeling battered, they begin to question their own selves. And so what the person who has the tantrums does, they inflict pain on the person, and then they have the person to inflict the same pain on themselves.
Right. Right. And again, as we present this, we want this particular session and conversation is to help parents see themselves better and then understand the impact on the child.
Most certainly.
Whether or not that temper tantrum is played out with the children or with a partner, if children are exposed to it, you should consider that your child has been in a traumatic situation, and then you should realize that there are some steps that need to be taken.
And Jackie, in most of these situations where the children are involved, the children usually end up having anxiety. They have depressed mode. They are sometimes become impulsive because they don't know how to act. They're not sure when something's gonna go down. They're not sure when the next thing is gonna happen. Right. And then they'll start mimicking the behaviors.
Right. That's true. Yep. Okay.
They'll start mimicking the behaviors.
And that kind of leads us right into after someone has had a temper tantrum. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, the thing about it is that when someone has had a temper tantrum, you're going to find that they are usually very calm. Now, you can't go to them like, I'm going to tell what you did last night, and I didn't appreciate it. No, you can't go to them that way. Because what you're going to have is another tantrum.
Wow.
You have to go to them calmly and say, last night something happened. I'm not sure you were aware, but this is what happened. And it made Susan very upset. She was crying in her room. She was scared. And she talked about, Susan is a child, and Susan's talking about that she thought you were going to kill me. We're going to have to deal with your tantrums. Now, the adult male is not going to want to hear the word tantrum. Right. He want to hear like my anger.
Right.
Because you said tantrums.
Because
you call me a child? Children have tantrums. Are you with me?
Right. Right. Yes.
So,
and I'm not a child. So you.
But I'm making you aware of what it really is. It really is. They're having tantrums. They're having tantrums. And when you ask how to deal with it, guess what? The same way you deal with a child. You let them go through their tantrum. Do not interfere with it. Go out the room. And guess what? Sometimes if you walk out the room, they'll follow you out the room. Now, if they follow you out the room, it means they ain't totally out of it.
But you know something, Dr. Miles, when you mentioned how to deal with it, keep in mind that a lot of times children aren't trained on how to deal with that. Right. Children may approach that parent. Children may try to say, calm down, don't be upset, and they get hurt. Right. And
that's when the law enforcement is involved. That child goes up to him and say, leave mommy alone. And he hits his arm and throws the child across the room. The child hits his head on a coffee table. Are you with me? So that's where that comes from. And or the same attack comes toward the wife or the girlfriend, or vice versa. The girlfriend throws him across the room. Right. So the point is that these tantrums,
or a child just a parent yelling at a child.
Yeah, these tantrums can become violent.
Without another partner present. Right.
They can become violent, and folk they usually do. You have to address the tantrum
Right.
and go through it step by step. Like, this is what happened. This is how I felt. I know you're upset, but to me, it put us in a very bad situation. And we need to talk about this because something needs to happen.
Right.
Because I can't continue to deal with this. It's not good for my health. I know that dis-ease causes disease.
Right.
Right. So the whole point is that we got to deal with this thing, and you got to seek some help. You got to seek
Dr.
help.
Miles, would you consider it positive when that person is receptive? We know that when they're not, that's an ongoing issue. What's happening, especially post tantrum, with someone who's acknowledging and saying, "Wow, yeah, I recall that I really lost it."
Let me give this: faith without action is dead. If they ain't doing nothing, they have not received it.
Right. And so there's a great continued risk.
Right. But the thing about it with and some cases that I deal with, I'll try not to be so specific, is that the person will say, if you leave me and the kids leave me, that's all I have. All right.
You hear it all the time. You see it in the movies all the time.
So the whole point of this is that you got to make sure, folk, that the person is mentally stable. And then if it's really severe, you got to plan your move. And it's really up to you. You got to decide how much you can deal with. But I don't think anyone wants to deal with that stuff every day. Nobody wants to deal with being battered every day. I mean, even verbally.
You just raised another good point. Frequency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talk about frequency. Do you think, and there may not be a frequency for tantrums, if you've had a person, let's say that, they've thrown a fit, I don't know, maybe they come up once a year, maybe they come up whenever, or maybe you have a person that's just kind of constantly, just kind of losing it. How does frequency play into it?
Well, just like any other diagnosis, it's going to depend upon the person.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's going to depend upon the things that trigger it.
Right.
Like some triggers are, don't talk about my mama. Don't talk about my family.
Okay.
Don't talk about how much money I make.
Right.
Gotcha. Don't talk about me coming in. Right. Don't talk about me screaming at the kids.
Gotcha.
So
case by case.
There are some. There's some women. I treat women who deal with this stuff every day. Like 3 times a day. And the men don't realize that taking care of 8 children that you gave me is a full-time job. So when you come home from work, you tell me I ain't did nothing, and y'all be grateful for what I'm doing. It's just, and so I said that women need to be empowered to not tolerate that.
So that really puts this conversation at a different level, and maybe we will continue. Maybe there'll be a part 2 to this.
But what is Jackie?
Let's focus on what this looks like, because it really is going into another area of what it looks like. But again, you don't hear the term adult temper tantrum. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what we're talking about now is how those tantrums can be dangerous.
They can be dangerous because they can lead to violence, and it's according to the situation.
Right.
But most people who have tantrums who are adults, Jackie, they don't have like little moderate tantrums.
Gotcha.
They escalate. Just like think about the road rage. Do they calm down?
Right.
I had a case.
And I thought that was a perfect example, because you say to yourself, how is this person out in a car and lose it enough, as we've heard in some cases, to get out of their car, to shoot people, to try to, that is clearly a person out of control.
Let me tell you that the reverse of that. I had a client who had road rage, followed the person to the store. The person who he followed shot him. So he has a different view on road rage now. Because he lived. And he thought about how foolish that was.
Right. But again, now you're talking about, the point that some of them have to get to trigger a different thought. And in this case, life-threatening. And
the sad part about it, when they enter that rage, there is no calming down, folk. The person has to calm down themselves. That's why we keep saying, stop trying to touch them. You need to move out of the way. When an adult is having a tantrum
Just
or
move.
anger fit, whatever you want to call it, stop trying to calm them because you
Right.
can't do it, folk.
Right.
You're placing yourself in danger and you're placing the children in danger.
Right.
So when the person has a tantrum, the same with the child, as you said, I'm not saying, she said classroom, don't move the furniture, but move yourself.
Right.
Make sure you're
Get
safe.
yourself and your
Right.
children out of the way.
Exactly. And let them have their tantrum.
Okay.
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 All right.
Let's see.
Jackie,
Essentially,
Jackie, can I do this right here? We
yes.
have a few more minutes. Time goes so fast. But are there any members of our audience, our followers, who have a question you want to ask? Let's take that. And Jackie, you can continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I really think these red flags are going to raise some questions, Dr. Mouse. I mean, the first one here, makes all the decisions in the relationship.
I want you to say it real slowly because people don't see this stuff. I'm telling you, these are the red flags of a person who will have a tantrum.
Decisions in the relationships, controls your words and behavior. Wow. And again, this is something for people to start thinking, has this happened? Tries to keep you from going to work, spending time with loved ones. In other words, keeping you from spending time with loved ones, keeping you from seeing your health care provider. You want to expand on that, Dr. Mouse? Because a lot of people don't realize now they ask those questions.
That's the point.
At every appointment. Do
That's
you
the
feel
point.
safe?
Exactly.
At home?
That's the
Is
point.
there anything right?
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that. I thought, wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because Jack, what they're finally doing, the physicians, medical doctors are now seeing that as mental health practitioners, they sometimes see what's happening first.
Right. Right.
Because of the stigmas that are associated with mental health. So your primary care doctor will see that you're depressed.
The doctor who treats your physical well-being.
Right, exactly.
Right. Is noticing signs because
exactly.
it is noticeable. Threatens pets and children. And I have to tell you, Dr. Miles, it reminds me of the movie For Colored Girls Who've Considered Suicide, which is really a very traumatic movie to watch. But one of the scenes was of a partner who always threatened the children and one day acted out on it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is really good because these are things people should not ignore. Destroys your belongings. Okay. Blames you for their own behavior. Okay, you talked about that.
You made me do this. I'm not like this, Ray. I'm on this way around you.
Take or control your money.
Yeah.
All about, so control is a big factor here. Pressure you to have sex.
Let's talk about the pressure. The pressure is you just have had a tantrum 3 times this day. You call me all kinds of names. And then you get in bed and want to be intimate. But guess what happens? Refusal of it causes a tantrum.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Goes through your phone and computer without permission. Yeah, that alone should be a sign. Anyone that needs to be going through your phone or your computer. Really, Dr. Mouse, what you're describing are people who've kind of lost touch with themselves and a certain sense of reality.
Insecurities.
Those are all very, I think in relationships, even and with younger children, they consider it, okay, it's part of love. We share our locations and all of these things. But when someone is going through your phone, they must be looking for something.
But the other thing, Jackie, too, it really is a person who does not respect your boundaries.
Right.
And even with being married, you have some boundaries. You have some space you don't want anybody into.
Right.
And if you don't, I'm going to tell you, you're the person who has the tantrums.
Wow.
If you're not anybody who have these things, it is you.
Yes.
And there's treatment.
Yes.
And, when you ask the question, where does it come from? I mentioned that prior to being an adult, they had some children issues, right?
Yes.
But you know what overwhelms me being in this profession is that folk have had some really jacked up lives, some really messed up lives.
Yeah.
And it was normalized.
Right.
And they said, no, that was just nothing. That's the way our family was.
Yep.
And
A
then they
lot
have,
of untreated trauma.
exactly.
And, you know, sometimes we don't like to say these things, but there are communities that are not, especially historically, have not been open to mental wellness.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm not even going to
exactly.
say treatment, mental wellness.
Exactly.
We normalize it. There in many communities, abuse
Mm-hmm.
within the household, within the families, ignored. Right. So you're right. There's a lot out there that could be quote unquote causing it.
Let's just stay in this little area for a while,
Mm-hmm.
because we said that when children have um, mental health issues and or diagnosis, it means that the neurotransmitters are not connecting somewhere, right?
Right.
But we said that's part of it. But we
Right.
also said the environment played a very important part.
Right.
So when the neurotransmitters are not connecting, plus this environment
Environment.
that is
Right.
permissive, where
Right.
there's
It's like
cussing
putting
going,
two hot wires together.
there's cussing going on, there's no boundaries for the kids, they can be outside at any time, and there's no a uniform discipline plan.
Consistency,
That's
structure.
what that's what comes out of it.
Wow. Okay. You know, as always, I learn a lot myself, and I hope our audience realizes that as we are, you know, unwrapping these things, we, you know, things are triggering in our minds. We're being aware. Dr. Miles is the practitioner. I'm not, so I feel like sometimes I'm the audience. I'm always learning a
Mhm.
lot. And again, never heard the term adult temper tantrum, and certainly never had it unwrapped like this, with the triggers, what happens before, how you should respond. So I hope that our audience has found this very useful. And this is one, you know, all of them are items to take back, but this is
Right.
one to take back, do some serious analysis and evaluation, and come up with a game plan if you're seeing these things in your partner or in your home or in yourself.
Let's talk about this. So if you're the person who's receiving this kind of treatment and you are understanding of it, I would advise you to get a mental health treatment,
Right.
because it simply means that you are allowing someone to control you,
To abuse you.
abuse you, and you normalize it. You say it's okay. Or you call it love. Or you call it, well, I don't want to be alone. Or this is what a lot of women are using. I didn't have a dad. This I
Didn't
didn't
have a
have a
dad.
dad when I was growing up.
And you know,
So,
it's so funny because sometimes I feel like somebody planted that out there and then everybody started using it. Oh, that's why I do it. Because I didn't have a dad. Okay.
well,
That means you didn't have the abuse, so why are you having it now?
but we also know it's not just good to have any man around the children. So in other words, he beats me up.
Listen,
He
Dr.
has
Miles.
he has the anger temper tantrums, but he's a man, and guess what? I don't want my kids to be without a dad.
Dr.
Sometimes they're
Miles, again, I know of scenarios where people actually believe what you just said, that it's better to have a bad one than none at all.
um,
And you know, recognizing that perhaps at this point, you know, you've been abused at a point,
well,
or you're
Jackie,
not well yourself.
I would ask those folk then, when their children become adults, ask the child how was their childhood,
Mm-hmm. Or watch the kinds of adults they become,
and you will then get the answer.
and you'll get it, which is
Yeah,
what Dr. St. Patrick Bell is going to be talking about.
right,
Your
exactly.
issues unhealed show up in your children revealed.
It's gonna show up, Jackie.
Yes,
When you don't deal with this stuff when the kids are younger, with your own stuff,
it
because
shows up.
as Dr. Bell and I talked about, and I'm not gonna give her whole workshop away, but we talked about that if you don't deal with your stuff, then you raise your children through that abusive lens.
Yep, yep.
So
And
whatever
things
trauma
become
you experience,
normalized and internalized.
yeah, whatever abuse you experience, you then raise your children through that lens.
Through that lens.
And so,
Yes.
um, as usual, our time just flies by. I do want to spend a little time, Jack, as we wrap up. We may leave a little early, but it's
Okay.
7:55, and that is talking about the conference again, talking about the summit. Do you mind just
Okay.
going over that again?
I would love to go over that again. We have 4 breakout sessions. We want people to know that they will be able to choose their session. Okay. So we're going to have breakout rooms. This is a Zoom format. It is on May 1st, which is coming up quickly. It's going to be from 10 to 12. So as Dr. Miles mentioned, it's 2 hours. I think it'll be the most impactful 2 hours that anyone has had at this type of workshop. The title is Making Children Our Priority. That is the focus of the Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation. Make children a priority. We all want to see change. We all talk about education. We're talking about things happening in the street. Make children a priority. Deal with our issues, deal with their issues, and things get better. So our purpose, we're bringing people together on behalf of children and families, and this is across the country. It's open. Mm-hmm. The goal is to enlighten a global community about the needs of children and thereby making the world a better place for all of us. And I want people to kind of think about that for a moment, because that is how we do this. When we talk about how do we end racism, how do we address this, it's how we educate our children, right? That's a 5, 10, 20-year process. The children who are properly educated today won't grow up to be those adults who are doing the things that we are seeing, okay? So that's another conversation. But again, the invitations I think have gone out, or the registration links. So click on that, register, no cost. For those of you who might need hours, you can let us know, and those will be provided post conference. So it's an excellent time to focus on something. 4 different topics. Let's go over those again. 4 different workshops. Okay, your past traumas, unhealed, in your children revealed, parenting biracial children, and that entire conversation on what it means to be biracial and how it's affecting our children. Some serious issues there. Our children's education, why we think, why we trust others with it. Again, a lot of mental and emotional things going on when you turn your children over to someone else. And then, of course, fostering and adoptions. And are we doing that to meet the needs of the children or to meet our own? So 4 very impactful topics, Dr. Miles.
So Jackie, our topic next week, which I didn't get, I think it's about looking at the world through a child's eye or something like that. But we have one more live stream, which is going to be next Tuesday night. Right. And that's going to be really awesome, looking at the world through the children's eyes.
It's going to be very interesting.
So listen, Jackie, it's always good seeing you from the Sunshine State. I am Dr. Willie Miles here in Atlanta, Georgia. Listen, I want to thank you all for following us every week. We have some faithful followers. I really appreciate it. I don't take you for granted. But listen, stop getting all this good stuff for yourself. Tell somebody else. We need to have 500 followers.
Yes.
All right? Yes. So we're counting on you. All right? Jackie,
spread the word.
Thanks so much. We'll see you next week. Hey, thank you all, folks. We'll see you later on. Be good.